ask us, why we are only giving you 5 process maps as opposed to 10, right? Ask us why we, caveat the number of RFP responses that we're going to score. Ask us anything about our PDF in the live discussion. Do you agree, disagree? That's what I picture. And I've never worked for local government, so I'm not bashing anyone. But if I'm on a vendor panel and I've already read a PDF, sometimes a 60-page PDF, I want to know, I want clarity on what was in that PDF.
Yeah, and it's usually you're going to get a combination. You're going to get some people that didn't even read the proposal. So I ran several procurements, especially for technology when I was in local gov, and the committee that you put together, like a lot of things, is a cross section of folks that are process owners. They're important for this decision. They're end users. Not all of them are trained, nor should you expect them to be perfect at following the exact parts of a checklist of a procurement. Meaning, we get 13 proposals that come in the door, or even 20 that respond to our RFP. I know in the back of my mind, I'm not going to get everyone in that room to be able to sit there and read through 20 proposals. And if I do, it's going to take them a couple of weeks to be able to get through it. Ideally, you're going to make written notes in the margin, or you're going to keep notes on a computer, or what I was having people do towards the end was just dictate into some sort of device that'll transcribe, or just get your thoughts down as you're reading this proposal.
Mm-hmm.
And in one case, I had a city manager that insisted on being part of the procurement process, and I knew he wasn't going to have time to read the entire proposal, so I made sure that his admin sat in there with him while he was reading the proposals and took notes of his verbal responses as he's going through it. Whatever I can do to get you to read it. So you're right. Some people in that room haven't read it. Some people have read it, and they have a lot of questions. And that's the thing I like. That's why I love getting to the Q&A. I like the tough questions because it sparks in my mind the ability to bring in an experience I had with this particular software vendor, or with an organization that's the same size as the one I'm presenting to. So those tough questions get us to think and get us even more engaged. And when you've got your camera off, it's too easy to be multi-distracted.
Yes.
You're like, okay, camera's not on me. No one's looking. I can sit here and I can look at my phone. Maybe I can check some email. I've had some people, they went off and took a phone call for 10 minutes. If they're working remotely, they go and get their second cup of coffee, things like that. It is so easy to be distracted by that. And it's not because you don't want to listen to us. It's because this is the third presentation you've heard this morning. You really want to get that second cup of coffee. You figure if I just slip out for 5 minutes and then come back in, no one's going to know that I'm gone. It's also one of the reasons why on our end, we like having people on camera as well. It keeps a discipline that is important to be able to stay engaged. Otherwise, it's too easy nowadays to be distracted by something that's going on, and we all fall victim to that. And it's just so easy to do. My big question for those watching who are on local gov is, please tell me what I can say or what I can do to get you to turn your cameras on more. Just tell me what that is. I would love to do that.
Should we just, stop our presentation and say we're not moving on until everyone turns their camera on? Like, I don't want to be that person, but I want the cameras on. I want the cameras.
And that's the advice that's been given to us, right?
Yeah, right.
That people in the industry and industry leaders that tell us, maybe you need to tell them, if you don't turn your cameras on, you're not the kind of client we would like to work for. That's a bit extreme. I don't want to do that. That's not. And there are times when it's legitimate as to why you don't have your camera on. I understand that, and I get that. That's not a problem at all. It's just when we go into these meetings, the ones that bother me are the ones we go in and everyone has their camera off.
Right.
That sets a tone right there. If it's half the people, or if someone is only able to join because they're in their car, great, no problem with that. It's the ones we walk into where every single camera's off.
Yeah, and it's just their name. Sometimes it's not even their name, right? On a black screen, and you're just talking to a wall is what it feels like, because they're not engaging with you. I guess the reality of it is some of this in procurement, and I hate to say this, but sometimes we're interviewed just to check a box, right? To say, they already know who they want to go with, but that is the message that I get when your cameras are turned off and you're not engaging engaging with me. When I debrief with the team and people ask me, well, how did it go? It's like, well, they had their cameras turned off and they didn't engage. So I think it was pre-baked for somebody else. Maybe, there was a consultant that they've worked with years ago that they want to give this job to. But in reality, that's not fair. And life isn't fair, and I'm not here to whine about why it's not fair, but you do these interviews to get to know what your options are. And I think that everyone should be open minded, regardless.
Yeah, we've had it in interviews we've done internally recently.
Yeah.
We've got some folks that virtually we thought they're the real deal. This is what we're looking for. And when we talk to these people in person, the dynamic changed. And folks that did not necessarily do well virtually, they did pretty good. Actually wound up being, it was like, this is the person.
Yeah.
And some of that is just by some people it's very difficult to read within 1 hour, or in a 30-minute meeting, or even like a 15-minute meeting. And so it takes a little bit more time to be able to do that. But again, that's why it's easy for us to be able to pick up on the visual cues and understand of like, okay, they really want this to wrap. Okay, they're
Hmm.
not interested. Maybe they've already identified another vendor that they want. Sometimes we came in near the bottom of the list, right?
Oh,
And
yeah.
we came out first just because they hadn't seen us present yet, and our ability to present well and in person won us two major jobs that we were shortlisted on, but we were actually lower ranked on the list of the folks that they selected for shortlist, and we came out number one. So that's the importance of that dynamic, and especially if we're going to do an ERP project for you or almost any project, there's going to be a discovery element of it where we're going to interact with your staff, hopefully in person. Sometimes remote's the only option, and it is going to be important to have the cameras on then, because that's when we're going to be just establishing ourselves with your end users, alleviating the fears that we always talk about. Oh, here comes a consultant. They're going to change my world, or they're going to make my job more difficult, or they're going to, have us pick a new system that I'm not going to be able to understand or stay trained on. These are the things that either in person or virtually with your camera on, we can quickly address and alleviate with folks. So we're going to have that dialogue one way or another anyway. And in those sessions, very rarely do people have their camera off. So I know they can have their camera on. It's just in that shirtless presentation. It would make my world a lot better if I could, like I said, read your face for cues and be able to make sure this presentation is to the point in what you need to know.
Yeah. I mean, I think at the end of the day, people want to do business. Well, I don't know, but my belief is that people want to do business with people that they like, right? I mean, I've presented with other firms, and to me, I'm like, I think that we do a good job, and I'm not tooting our own horn, but we do a good job showcasing our personality and the human side of consulting. We're not the people that walk in the room and immediately make you feel less, because of technology, or that we're too technical. We do a really good job meeting folks where they are. And so in the presentation, that's what we're trying to showcase. We want you all to know who you're going to be doing business with for the next 1 to 5 years, right? This is a long time. It's a lot of money spent. You need to do business with people who are going to truly take care of you. And that's what we are trying to showcase in 60 minutes. Robert, you are a CIO. How do you think that these local government agencies should structure that 60 minute? First of all, I don't think it should be 60 minutes. I think an hour and 15 minutes is perfect, for engaging conversation and to get through, like intros and background and storytelling, right, of where we've done this work before. But in your experience, how should they structure the 60 minutes or however long?
So interesting question. I have a perspective that I don't think everyone necessarily shares, but there's a method to it. So I would usually give an hour 15 for a short presentation, like you're talking about. I wouldn't set an agenda, because what I want to see is, I always wanted to see, can the vendor be respectful of time? Can the vendor read the room and know, okay, this needs to go faster? And you would be surprised by, I was usually the person that would greet, because I was in charge of whatever that procurement was. I would usually greet the folks that were doing the presentation, explain any ground rules, if any, of doing the presentation. Usually there were none. This actually was your ability to come in and ask and answer any question that was sort of thrown at you, something you don't get to do in a basic RFP other than the Q&A session, pre-submittal, like I talked about. And I would just warn them, although you might want to take up the whole hour and 15, I really think you need to leave some time to for questions, either to ones you want to ask us or we can ask you. And occasionally I get someone that goes, nope, all we have is a presentation. We don't have any questions. We don't do questions. I'm like, are you sure? I'm like, nope, we're good with that. I'm like, okay, then you're going to do an hour and 15 minutes of presentation, and then you're going to walk out of the room. And in my mind, I'm thinking terrible strategy. These folks want to ask questions, especially if they get engaged with the presentation. But the length of time doesn't bother me as much, because if you give me 30 minutes of your time, I will find a way to make sure that we balance that presentation with Q&A. It's very tight. It's very difficult to do. So even like 40 minutes, 45 minutes, 50 minutes, I'll take whatever you can throw at me. The goal being, I will be as efficient as I need to be and be respectful of your time. Ideally, I would like to have a drawn out Q&A. We were just on one recently that they took us over the time limit very briefly because they wanted to ask a few more questions. That's great. Always more than happy to do that. Time element, not as big a factor as in the ability to balance between the presentation and the Q&A with me. But yeah, under 45 minutes, incredibly tough, especially if you're talking about ERP. It's almost impossible to do under an hour, because it's such a vast topic and there's so much nuance in it. It's very difficult to give them a full picture on ERP in under an hour.
Yeah, ITSP maybe, but yeah, ERP, there's a lot of information.